Before the tanks rolled into Poland and the bombs fell on London, a different kind of war was being waged. A war for the hearts and minds of an entire nation. In a country brought to its knees by humiliation and desperation, a singular voice promised to rebuild, to restore, and to reclaim. But that voice wasn't offering salvation. It was offering a meticulously crafted lie, a roadmap to destruction disguised as destiny. Adolf Hitler stood before the German people as a man of peace, a leader who claimed to heal the wounds of the Great War without firing a single shot. Yet behind the speeches and ceremonies, he was weaving something far darker. Secret plans for conquest, manipulation of truth, and the slow, calculated dismantling of every safeguard against war. How did he do it? How did one man convince a nation that aggression was defense, that tyranny was salvation, and that war was the only path to glory? This is the story of how Hitler manipulated Germany into war.
It is November 1937. Behind the high stone walls of the Reich Chancellery in Berlin, a secret meeting is underway. Adolf Hitler has summoned his most trusted generals to a closed room. The curtains are drawn, the doors sealed, and what unfolds will later be remembered as the Hossbach Memorandum. Here, Hitler lays bare his vision of Germany's future. It is not one of peace. It is not one of diplomacy. It is one of expansion, conquest, and domination. Austria, Czechoslovakia, and then, further east, for Lebensraum, living space. A new German empire, carved by fire and steel, where millions would be displaced, enslaved, or destroyed. His generals shift uncomfortably. They know Germany is not ready for war. The economy is fragile, the military unprepared, the nation still scarred by memories of 1914. War, they warn, could bring only ruin. But Hitler's eyes burn with a different conviction. He is not concerned with readiness, he is concerned with destiny. That night, seeds of doubt are planted inside the Wehrmacht. Some officers begin to whisper that their Führer is not a guardian of Germany's survival, but a gambler willing to risk everything, millions of lives, the nation's very existence, for his dream of empire. Yet, for all their doubts, no one dares to stop him. Not yet. Because Hitler's greatest weapon is not the Wehrmacht, nor the SS, nor the Gestapo. It is deception, the ability to speak of peace while planning for war, to stand before the world as a statesman, even as he prepares the battlefield. And as the doors of the Reich Chancellery close that night, Europe's countdown to catastrophe begins. The year is 1938. Inside Hitler's Germany, the Wehrmacht is still the only institution with the power to challenge him. Its generals, seasoned men of the old Prussian order, see themselves as guardians of the nation. Some of them doubt Hitler, some even fear him. But soon, he will strike at the very heart of their authority. It begins with Field Marshal Werner von Blomberg, the Minister of War. Newly married, he presents his young bride to Berlin society. But the Gestapo digs into her past. What they uncover is scandal, a criminal record, charges of prostitution. The news explodes like a bomb. Blomberg, humiliated, is forced to resign. Then comes Werner von Fritsch, the commander-in-chief of the army. He too is targeted. Secret police accuse him of homosexuality, a charge that, in Hitler's Reich, carries disgrace and exile. Though the evidence is flimsy, the damage is done. Fritsch is driven out. Within weeks, Germany's two most powerful generals have been removed. The Wehrmacht's independence is shattered. And into the void steps Adolf Hitler himself. On February 4, 1938, he declares that he, not the generals, will now be supreme commander of the German army. In one stroke, the old order is broken. The last check on Hitler's power is gone. The generals, once confident that they could restrain him, now bow before him, reduced to instruments of his will. And as Hitler stands at the head of his army, the stage is set for his next move, the annexation of a nation. March 1938. Dawn breaks over the snow-capped Alps as German troops move toward the Austrian border. Tanks rumble down narrow roads, columns of soldiers march in perfect formation, and overhead, Luftwaffe aircraft slice through the sky. The operation has a name, Anschluss, the union of Germany and Austria. But there will be no battle. No resistance. No war. In Vienna, crowds flood the streets, their arms raised in salute. Young women throw flowers onto the hoods of German vehicles, children climb lampposts to catch a glimpse of their Führer. To the world, the images broadcast by Joseph Goebbels' propaganda machine are unmistakable. Austria is welcoming Hitler with open arms. Yet behind the celebration lies coercion. The Austrian Chancellor, Kurt Schuschnigg, had been forced to resign under Nazi pressure. The German army entered not as invited guests, but as occupiers. Still, in the eyes of millions, it looks like destiny fulfilled, the uniting of all Germans into one Reich. Across Europe, Britain and France watch with unease. But they do nothing. No ultimatums, no troops, no resistance. Instead, a dangerous precedent is set. Hitler has expanded Germany's borders without firing a single shot. To his people, it appears as if their Führer has delivered a miracle, peace through strength, victory without war. But to Hitler, Austria is only the beginning. His eyes are already fixed on his next target, Czechoslovakia. Austria had fallen with barely a whisper, but Hitler's appetite was not satisfied. To the east lay Czechoslovakia, a young democracy, armed, fortified, and determined to resist. Its defenses were strong, its alliances with France and the Soviet Union still intact. But Hitler knew strength on the battlefield was not the only weapon. Propaganda could be sharper than steel. The Sudetenland, a border region home to millions of ethnic Germans, became his pretext. Through Goebbels' vast propaganda machine, the world was shown images of Sudeten Germans allegedly beaten, oppressed, denied their rights. Radio broadcasts crackled with stories of suffering, their pleas growing louder with each passing week. Only Hitler, they claimed, could save them. Behind the curtain, the Reich's military staff drew invasion plans under the codename Fall Grund. Panzer divisions mapped routes across the border, Luftwaffe squadrons marked airfields for destruction. But Hitler still appeared before the microphones proclaiming peace. And while he spoke, he built a new instrument of loyalty, the SS. Once a small guard unit, the SS was expanding into an empire within the Reich, commanded by Heinrich Himmler, loyal only to Hitler. Its purpose was clear. If the generals resisted him, the SS would enforce his will with ruthless efficiency. As the summer of 1938 deepened, the world began to sense the danger. Yet Hitler's mask remained intact. To millions at home, he was still the peacemaker, the man who could defy the old order without plunging Germany back into the horrors of war. But inside the Wehrmacht, unease turned into something else, open talk of rebellion. By the summer of 1938, the illusion was cracking. Inside the marble corridors of the Wehrmacht, whispers grew into plans. Some of Germany's highest-ranking officers now believed their Führer was leading the nation toward ruin. General Ludwig Beck, chief of the General Staff, warned that war with Czechoslovakia could ignite a wider European conflict, one Germany could not win. His resignation in protest sent shockwaves through the officer corps. Others, like Colonel Hans Oster of the Abwehr, and General Erwin von Witzleben, went further. They began to plot in secret. Meetings were held in quiet apartments, voices hushed, blinds drawn. A plan emerged: if Hitler ordered the invasion of Czechoslovakia, they would act. He would be arrested, perhaps even killed. In churches, priests absolved them of their oath of loyalty to the Führer. Conspiracy edged dangerously close to treason. But rebellion was never simple. The conspirators hesitated, torn between duty and fear, between their devotion to Germany and the crushing weight of betrayal. And all the while, Hitler pressed forward, his speeches fiery, his demands louder, his shadow stretching across the continent. The conspirators waited for the signal, the one reckless order that would give them cause to strike. But the order never came. Because far away, in London, a desperate prime minister was preparing to gamble on diplomacy, and give Hitler the very gift he needed. September 1938. Europe teeters on the brink. German troops mass on the Czech frontier. Inside Berlin, the conspirators prepare to act. If Hitler orders war, they will strike. But across the Channel, Britain's Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain believes disaster can still be avoided. He boards a plane, the first British leader ever to fly in such a mission, bound for Hitler's Alpine retreat at Berchtesgaden. High in the Bavarian mountains, Chamberlain is ushered into the Berghof. Hitler greets him not as a tyrant, but as a statesman. Calm, measured, almost reasonable, he insists he wants only one thing: justice for the Sudeten Germans. Chamberlain listens, weary from years of war memories, desperate to believe. He returns to London claiming progress, but Hitler is not finished. At their second meeting in Bad Godesberg, the mask slips. This time, his demands are harsher. He will not wait for a plebiscite, not tolerate delays. The Sudetenland must be handed over at once, or Germany will march. Chamberlain is shaken. He writes of Hitler's eyes, cold, burning, unyielding. And yet, he clings to hope. War must be avoided, even if it means surrendering land that is not Britain's to give. The world holds its breath. On one side, Hitler's armies stand ready. On the other, a fragile diplomacy teeters. In Berlin, the conspirators tense, ready for the signal. But Hitler, ever the tactician, sees another path. By playing the man of peace, he can win without firing a single shot. And soon, he will. September 30th, 1938. In the gilded halls of Munich, the fate of Czechoslovakia is sealed without a single Czech representative at the table. Britain, France, Italy, and Germany sign what will be known as the Munich Agreement. The Sudetenland, its people, its defenses, its industry, is handed to Hitler. No battle is fought. No blood is shed. It is appeasement, dressed up as diplomacy. Neville Chamberlain, weary but hopeful, returns to London waving the signed paper. Before the cheering crowds he proclaims, "Peace for our time." The world exhales in relief. But inside Germany, the effect is devastating, not for Hitler, but for those who sought to stop him. The conspirators, who had prepared to arrest or even assassinate him if he declared war, now falter. Their moment is gone. Hitler has triumphed without bloodshed, and their courage dissolves in the glow of his apparent genius. In the streets of Germany, celebration erupts. Propaganda shows Hitler as a savior, the leader who unites Germans and defies the West without plunging the nation into chaos. His popularity soars to new heights. For Hitler, Munich is more than a victory. It is proof that the world will yield to his threats, that Britain and France will trade land for peace, and that he can seize what he desires without consequence. But behind his triumph lies a lie more dangerous than any bomb, the belief that appeasement had saved peace. In truth, it had only delayed war, and given Hitler the confidence to strike again. 6 months after Munich, the illusion is shattered. It is March 1939. Snow still clings to the rooftops of Prague as German troops march through its cobbled streets. Tanks grind past stunned civilians. The swastika rises over Prague Castle. This is no liberation. No union of Germans. This is conquest. Hitler has not stopped with the Sudetenland, he has taken the whole of Czechoslovakia. The world watches in disbelief. The Munich Agreement, once hailed as the triumph of peace, is exposed as a hollow promise. For the first time, Britain and France realize what they face is not a statesman seeking compromise, but a dictator who will never be satisfied. But inside Germany, the story is different. Propaganda hails Hitler as unstoppable, a genius who bends nations to his will. Crowds cheer, convinced that their Führer can outwit every enemy, silence every critic. His popularity reaches its peak. For the generals who once plotted against him, hope dwindles. If Hitler could seize Czechoslovakia without firing a shot, who could believe he was anything but invincible? Resistance collapses. The last embers of conspiracy fade into silence. And now, with Austria and Czechoslovakia absorbed into his Reich, Hitler turns his gaze further east. His next target is Poland, and this time, the world will not look away. September 1, 1939. Just before dawn, a German battleship, the Schleswig-Holstein, opens fire on a Polish garrison at Westerplatte. At the same moment, armored columns surge across the Polish frontier, engines roaring, treads tearing through the earth. Overhead, waves of Luftwaffe bombers scream across the sky, unleashing destruction from above. This is Blitzkrieg, lightning war. Speed, shock, and terror combined into a new form of warfare. Poland is crushed beneath its weight. But this time, Hitler has miscalculated. 2 days later, on September 3rd, Britain and France declare war on Germany. The Second World War has begun. Inside Germany, the mood is heavy. Memories of 1914 still haunt the nation, the long trenches, the starvation, the defeat. Ordinary Germans brace for the worst, uncertain if their leader has doomed them once again. But as Polish defenses collapse in weeks, the tide of doubt shifts. Propaganda floods the airwaves, showing triumphant soldiers and swift victories. Once more, Hitler appears to have delivered on his promises. To many, it seems he has defied history itself, achieving what no German leader before him dared. Yet beneath the triumph, the truth is clear: Europe is now at war, and Hitler's deception has dragged the world into its most destructive conflict. But for Hitler, the fall of Poland is only the beginning. His eyes are fixed on greater prizes: France, Scandinavia, and beyond. And with each victory, his illusion of invincibility will grow, until it consumes him. The year is 1940. Europe is reeling under the force of Blitzkrieg. In just months, Denmark falls, Norway collapses, and the Low Countries, Belgium, Holland, Luxembourg, are swept aside. Then comes France, the jewel of Europe, toppled in 6 weeks. In Paris, German troops march beneath the Arc de Triomphe. The swastika flutters over the Eiffel Tower. And in a carefully staged photograph, Adolf Hitler stands before the monument he once dreamed of visiting as a failed artist. Now, he claims it as conqueror. Propaganda declares him a military genius, a man chosen by destiny to restore Germany's greatness. Crowds cheer, convinced he is invincible. Mussolini pledges Italy's loyalty. In Tokyo, Japan joins the alliance. The Axis is born. At the height of his power, Hitler rules a continent. To his people, he appears unstoppable. To his enemies, he seems untouchable. But behind the victories lies a darker truth. Entire nations are enslaved, millions live under terror, and Europe has been plunged into a nightmare from which it will not awaken for years. Hitler has manipulated a broken nation into war, deceived the world with the mask of peace, and conquered half of Europe in little more than a year. Yet the story is far from over. For even in triumph, he has sown the seeds of his own destruction. The devastation of World War II has only just begun. Before the first bombs fell on London, before the battlefields of Stalingrad and Normandy, Adolf Hitler had already waged his most dangerous war, a war of deception. He promised peace but prepared for conquest. He spoke of destiny while laying the foundations of destruction. He manipulated a wounded nation, silenced his generals, dismantled conspiracies, and seduced the world with the illusion of diplomacy. In less than 2 years, he transformed Germany from the ashes of defeat into the spearhead of a new war that would engulf the globe. For a moment, it seemed unstoppable. Nations collapsed before him. His people believed. His enemies faltered. And yet, the very triumphs that made him appear invincible would draw him into battles he could not win. World War II was no longer a distant possibility. It was here. And the devastation it unleashed would scar humanity forever. The mask of peace was gone. The true face of Hitler, ruthless, reckless, and consumed by obsession, was revealed. And the road he had set Germany upon would not lead to salvation, but to ruin. The world had entered its darkest chapter. And the fire he lit would burn until millions lay dead, empires collapsed, and the map of the world was redrawn in blood.